What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by, spending a few minutes of your time here with me tonight. Tonight, I'm going to be answering a question that was asked in the comment section of the last video, okay? So shout out to Robbie for the question, all right? This video is specifically for you, all right? I appreciate you being here, bro. The question was, how do we decide what 5-minute candle for our entry when we're using this 20 period moving average, right? How do we determine this? How do we use the universal entry criteria? Okay. Now, I cannot tell you, something that's going to work for everyone or something, I can only explain to you how it works for me, why I have chosen to trade like this. Okay. And I'll explain to you a little bit of the logic behind it. All right. Now, there's something that you have to understand. All right. Which is how these different time frames interact with each other, right? And I'm talking about the 1 minute, the 5-minute, and the 15-minute time frame, right? Because the patterns that we are looking for on a 1 minute time frame, for example, they look like one thing on a 1 minute time frame, but then there's something else on a 5-minute time frame, all right? And then those same patterns, this engulfment that we're looking for on a 5-minute time frame, is something different on a 15-minute time frame. Okay, but we have to understand, what we're seeing, no matter what time frame we're looking at. All right, but you also have to understand that depending on the time frame you're using, right, then your entry is going to change slightly. Right now, the reason why I am using the 5-minute candles, okay, is because that's what Stacy says in his playbook. When he goes over the universal entry criteria of that 20 period moving average, okay, he specifically is talking about a 5-minute time frame, okay, a 5-minute engulfment, right? So that's important stuff. Now, let's just take a quick look at the context behind this trade. All right, we can see that we have this low. We're coming off of this low that took place in the London session. All right, and we've been pumping up into the New York Open. Now, before we get to the New York Open, we have broken out of the Tokyo session highs, which were this day's high of the day levels so far. Okay, so by the time we get to the New York session, we are putting in potentially a new high of the day level. So we are at the current day's high of the day level once we hit this New York Open. Okay, now, that being said, okay, we're putting in this new high of the day level. And then this market begins to fall. And you can see here that we indeed have a 5-minute candle closure here, okay? And here, and here, right? These are 5-minute candle closures. Sorry. All under that EMA, right? Now, if this first 5-minute candle closure under that EMA is a convincing candle closure to you, all right, then you can enter there. And you could use a 1-bar stop and it would not stop you out, okay? Or you could put it at the next wick, or you could just put it at the high of the day. We are trading an ACB trade, okay? It ain't coming back. So you can put your stop, up there at the high of the day. Now, if that's a wide stop for you and you're uncomfortable with the amount of money you're having to risk because of that wide stop, all you need to do is adjust your lot size accordingly. Okay. And that is going to affect the potential profit you're going to make. Okay. But that's what you're going to have to do if that's the type of trade you're going to take. Okay. And for that reason, I did not enter right there. I decided to wait and see if there was another potential entry. Okay. And I'm glad I did. Now, you can see this sort of head and shoulders pattern here on the 5-minute, right? Okay. three pushes into the high before going parabolic to the downside. All right. Now, another thing you can see are these three bullish candles. Stacy used to talk about that in his older videos. That's a 3-bar stop hunt. Okay. Back into the high of the day level. And then we have this bearish engulfing candle. Okay. If we took these three candles alone, that's a 3-bar reversal pattern. Okay. This is a convincing 5-minute candle close below that EMA. All right. So that was my entry there. My stop loss went at the structural highs of that pullback. All right. Because again, this is an ACB type of trade. All right. It should not be coming back. All right. Especially after the three pushes into the high. Okay. That's something that we're actively looking for. Right. A lot of the times that it's going to occur like that. All right. Now, we may have a different entry if we're looking at a 1-minute time frame. And we're going to go ahead and do that. So this is our 1-minute time frame. Okay. Now, on a 1-minute time frame, we are looking for M's at the high of the day, W's at the low of the day. And of course, we are looking for these at specific times. All right. Generally speaking, between 9:30 and 10:30, we are looking for this. Okay. And here is our M at the high of the day. Now, if I am using a 1-minute time frame to enter, which I'm not doing currently, okay? But if you go back and look at some of my older videos, I was actively trading on the 1-minute time frame. And if I'm doing this, okay, and I'm going to enter short when I see a M at the high of the day between 9:30 and 10:30, my entry is when we break this middle structure, okay? Once we break that middle structure of that M, that is my entry, right? And what this does is it keeps you from being that first mouse, okay, that Stacy calls, because, you could enter here and put your stop loss here and you get stopped out, right? Because you're the first mouse going after the cheese. But if you wait until after we break that middle structure, okay, it's a little bit more of a conservative entry, right? It's a little bit safer there. Okay, so my entry would have been here. My stop loss would have went at the high of the day because again, it should not come back to that level. All right. Not every trade is going to be a 1-bar stop, especially if you're trading on the 1-minute time frame. Okay. So that's the entry pattern that we're looking for on a 1-minute time frame. Okay. This, if we were to go back to our 5-minute time frame, you can see there's our 5-minute engulfment. Okay. So this M pattern on a 1-minute time frame, okay, is an engulfment on a 5-minute time frame. I hope that makes some sense for you. Okay. Now, if we go to our 15-minute time frame, all right, now you're going to see here where that 1-minute M was 5-minute engulfment, we have a pin bar. Okay. There's our pin bar. And again, that the actual entry we took on the 5-minute time frame, right? The actual entry that I took on the 5-minute time frame, that engulfment is somewhere in this pin bar. Okay. Now, on this 15-minute time frame, here's your first close below the EMA. So there's your entry on that 15-minute time frame. And on a 15-minute time frame, you're going to be using this 1-bar stop, or again, just putting your stop at the high of the day because it should not be going back up there. All right. And this is the reason you see how wide these stop losses are, right? For that reason, I am not using a 15-minute time frame to enter the market. The reason why you might use a 15-minute time frame to enter the market is if you're having trouble holding it, your trades on a 5 minute or a 1 minute. Okay. If you find yourself getting shaken out of trades on a 1 minute chart, you might need to move up to the 5 minute chart and see if that helps you up by clearing up some of that noise. Okay. You will be denoising your charts. Same thing with the 15 minute. If you're having trouble on the 1 minute and the 5 minute, go to the 15 minute, and maybe that will clear up enough noise to where when you get in a trade, you can just hold it through these candle closures. Okay. And it's going to train you to hold your trades that much longer because you are letting 15-minute candles close. Okay. Does that make sense? Right. And that's how I am using the 5 minute chart to determine my entries. Okay. That's how I'm choosing the candle. So if we go back to that, right, this should make a lot more sense to you. Right. You could have entered on this candle, but it's not a pretty trade. Okay. And I want a pretty entry, which is why I'm waiting for this candle closure. Okay. A convincing candle closure below that 5 minute or that 20 period moving average. The problem that I have with this first 5 minute candle, all right, because we don't have any information past that point, right? So this is all we have, right? This, from that point, in my opinion, could easily come back up here one more time and then give a proper entry, okay? It could happen. You know what I'm saying? It could be a fourth hour entry instead of a third hour entry or something like that. So that to me is not convincing simply because of the placement of it. But right, you see this larger 5 minute time frame M pattern, right? There's our M pattern there, that middle structure. It was broken by this candle, it just didn't close below, right? We have the 3 bar stop hunt pattern followed by the 5 minute engulfment. And I know that on a 1 minute time frame, this is another M pattern. Okay. That's an M right there going into the high of the day level. Okay. Where we want our entries. Right. So I hope that this makes more sense to you on why I am choosing that 5 minute candle. Right. And if that, if that's not convincing to you, this one would definitely be convincing to you. And there would be your entry. And maybe because it's such a big and convincing candle, you would use a 1 bar stop, or you would use those bodies, or you would use that wick. Okay. And you would just have to take that larger or wider stop loss. Right. That's just how it is sometimes. You're not perfect. You know what I mean? Nobody's perfect. You're not going to nail a perfect entry every time. Okay. But when you do nail that entry that you think is perfect, like I did, okay, it feels really good. You know what I mean? It feels really good. If you would have taken this entry, okay, you got in, your stop loss was here, you did not get stopped out, the trade went in your favor, that's great. But to me, I would have looked at that and been like, holy shit, that was close. That was really close. You're not sacrificing that much when you enter right here instead of right here. Does that make sense? So I appreciate y'all. Bonus points for anyone who can tell me what this drawing looks like, if it looks like anything to you, like a fucking dragonfly or something like that. But I appreciate y'all being here, man. I hope this video helps you out in some way. Okay. Sometimes I feel like I'm not making any sense when I'm talking. This is one of those times. So I appreciate y'all, man. Until next time, I hope you continue to free your mind.